Welcome to the deep dive. Today, our mission is really to cut through the noise of just one single, very packed news day, August 8th, 2025. You've given us this stack of sources covering, honestly, everything. High-stakes diplomacy, big legal battles in the U.S., science breakthroughs. Our goal is to pull out those essential bits of knowledge, maybe find some surprising connections, give you insights that, go beyond just the headlines. And August 8th, 2025, it really felt like a snapshot of our interconnected world, didn't it? Like everything significant decided to happen at once. So we're going to navigate the geopolitics, some surprising peace moves, some escalating conflicts. Then we'll dive into the U.S. legal and policy scene. And after that, explore what was happening in public health, tech, and even a bit of space history.
Exactly. And I think that's the key thing, isn't it? Looking beyond just the individual stories. A day like this, it's not just headlines. It's more like a living picture. We need to find those threads connecting everything, see the underlying forces, the patterns shaping what comes next.
Okay, let's unpack it then. August 8th saw this real flurry of diplomacy, but also conflict, right? And President Trump was, well, right in the middle of some surprising stuff. Let's start with the Ukraine ceasefire talks. So on August 8th, Trump announces he intends to meet Putin the following week, August 15th, in Alaska, specifically about a Ukraine ceasefire. Now, this came after weeks of the U.S. threatening new penalties if Russia didn't move towards peace.
Right.
But here's the immediate reaction. Ukrainian President Zelensky warns very clearly, no land swap deals. Ukraine won't give up territory. Sovereignty, borders, that's the line. And European leaders, pretty skeptical. They weren't keen on any deal that looks like it rewarded aggression.
Understandably.
So reactions were split. Supporters thought, okay, maybe this is a necessary reset, saves lives, stabilizes things. Critics, they called it risky appeasement, said it could sideline Kiev completely. Analysts suggested, well, maybe a summit could freeze the front lines, or at least ease pressure on energy and grain markets. But diplomats were quick to say, look, a durable deal, that's going to be tough, politically very tricky, without Ukraine actually at the table.
What's really striking there is the timing, isn't it? That announcement landed just as the deadline for Russia to accept a ceasefire agreement with Ukraine had expired. Russia was insisting on security guarantees, and the U.S. administration was putting forward new frameworks. So it really makes you ask, what does this mean for U.S. negotiation strategy? And maybe more importantly, for any chance of real peace if, Ukraine isn't an equal partner in the discussion.
Okay, shifting gears now, but still on diplomacy, a different peace effort. The Armenia and Azerbaijan corridor deal, informally nicknamed the Trump route.
Yes.
Also August 8th. The two sides sign a U.S. brokered agreement in Washington. It creates a new commercial route,
Cool.
connects Azerbaijan proper to its exclave, Nakhchivan, but through Armenia.
Right, a long-standing point of contention.
Reuters reported the text had security guarantees, phased implementation, international observers, the works. Reactions, again, divided. Baku and Azerbaijan framed it as a regional trade win. Yerevan, Armenia, though, really emphasized the sovereignty clauses. They insisted no extraterritorial control was given up.
That's crucial for them.
Analysts thought, okay, this could ease tensions, maybe attract investment if it holds.
Always big if.
But critics in Armenia were worried. Pressure on villages along the route, that sort of thing. And in the diaspora, lots of skepticism after years of broken promises.
Well, and connecting this to the bigger picture, even with that history, this kind of deal, even if it's just preliminary, can be a vital step. De-escalating these really entrenched conflicts often starts small. The challenge, as always, is implementation. Building trust. And the Trump route nickname definitely highlights the high-profile mediation involved.
Okay, now turning to a region with, well, intense ongoing conflict, Israel's actions in Gaza, and a really surprising response from Germany. On August 8th, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu authorized the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, to start a full occupation of Gaza City.
A major escalation.
The Israeli government argued it was essential, dismantle Hamas's remaining command structure. They even proposed conditional future governance by Arab forces.
Right.
But then Germany, one of Israel's closest partners, they declare they won't authorize exports of military goods if they could be used in Gaza until further notice.
Wow. That's significant.
German Chancellor Friedrich Merz pointed directly to Israel's security cabinet approving even tougher military action just the night before.
So direct reaction.
Yeah. And this German move, it sparked widespread condemnation of Israel's actions from the UN, Arab states, other Western allies, warnings about civilian displacement, regional conflict risk.
The usual tragic cycle.
The UN Security Council even convened an emergency session demanding an immediate halt. Israel's reaction. They blasted Berlin's decision, said it rewarded terrorism.
Predictable.
Aid groups, on the other hand, welcomed any move that might reduce civilian harm.
This episode really underscores these intensifying strains, particularly transatlantic strains, over how to actually end the conflict. It's this incredibly complex balance between national security goals, as Israel sees them, and urgent humanitarian concerns. And Germany's move, it could absolutely embolden other European capitals to tighten controls. It highlights this growing international pressure.
Okay, let's look towards Asia now. Rising China-Taiwan tensions were also in the news around August 8th. Early August saw delegations from Taiwan's opposition party, the KMT, visiting mainland China for high-level talks.
The Kuomintang.
But this happened at the same time as large-scale military exercises by China's PLA encircling Taiwan.
Sending very mixed signals there.
The talks were apparently focused on confidence building, economic cooperation, trying to diffuse tension, but it really exposed Taiwan's own internal political divisions on how to engage with Beijing.
Yeah, that's the core dilemma for Taiwan, isn't it? This delicate balance. Engagement might offer stability, maybe ease tensions in the short term, but it also risks being seen as making concessions or undermining sovereignty, which causes huge political friction at home. And for global stability, especially thinking about semiconductors, everyone's watching this incredibly closely, U.S. allies especially. Any misstep, well, the consequences could be massive.
And here's where things get really interesting, connecting back to the conflict zones. Ukrainian drone attacks disrupting Russian infrastructure.
Yes, this is becoming a major story.
During that first week of August, reports indicated Ukrainian forces really intensified these drone strikes, hitting critical Russian infrastructure, oil depots, transport hubs.
Going deeper into Russia.
President Zelensky backed these expanded operations. Russia, naturally, responded with threats of escalation, retaliation. Western intelligence sources noted the sophistication of Ukrainian tactics, but also warned about the dangers, blurring the lines of regional warfare.
If we connect this back, these tactics really demonstrate Ukraine's evolving capabilities, their operational reach. But it also lays bare the inherent risks of escalation. It's testing the resolve on both sides, and frankly, for international observers too, it's a high-stakes development.
Okay, let's shift focus back home now, to the U.S. August 8th was a pretty significant day for legal battles and policy clashes. First up, a federal judge blocked Trump's birthright citizenship order nationwide.
Right, this is a big one.
It was actually August 7th, but reported widely on the 8th. A federal judge in Maryland issued this nationwide preliminary injunction. Apparently the fourth ruling like this to halt the order, which was aimed at narrowing the 14th Amendment's citizenship clause.
A direct challenge to established interpretation.
And what was interesting is the court certified a nationwide class of affected families, which seems like a way to grant broad relief, even after that June Supreme Court ruling that tried to limit universal injunctions.
Exactly. That's fascinating, legally speaking. Yeah. It shows this ongoing tension, this push and pull between the executive branch and the judiciary, especially on constitutional interpretation. And the use of that nationwide class certification, that's a clever legal maneuver. It tries to get around those recent Supreme Court limits, ensuring the ruling has immediate broad impact. It just highlights how persistent these legal fights over immigration policy are.
Next, this was quite extraordinary. The news that the Justice Department subpoenaed New York Attorney General Letitia James.
Yeah, that raised a lot of eyebrows.
On August 8th, federal prosecutors issued subpoenas to her office, part of an investigation into whether her actions violated Trump's rights and also conduct related to her NRA litigation.
So multiple fronts.
Multiple outlets reported a grand jury was convened. James's spokesperson, predictably, called it a weaponization of the justice system. I mean, this is extraordinary, isn't it? A federal probe looking into a state AG's litigation choices, especially when they involve a sitting president's interests.
It's almost unprecedented territory. It injects this huge amount of legal and political volatility. You're talking about a federal inquiry into the actions of a state's top lawyer regarding cases against a former president who is now president again. It raises these fundamental questions about the independence of law enforcement. Is there a risk of this tit-for-tat cycle? Could it erode the whole system? The calls for transparency and fairness get really loud when politics and prosecution collide like this.
And staying in the legal arena but shifting states, the Texas redistricting showdown escalated. On August 8th, Attorney General Ken Paxton asked courts to actually remove 13 Democratic House members from office.
Ones who fled the state.
Exactly. They left to deny a quorum for a vote on a GOP-drawn map that could flip several congressional seats.
A dramatic move.
And separately, a county judge issued a temporary restraining order to stop Beto O'Rourke's group, powered by people, from funding the lawmakers stay out of state,
Cutting off their support.
Meanwhile, Republican House leaders tightened rules on pay for members not attending. Democrats filed challenges called the removal push unconstitutional.
So connecting this to the bigger picture, what's happening in Texas isn't just a state fight anymore. It signals this broader nationalization of these state-level redistricting battles. You've got out-of-state funding involved, the high-stakes, quorum-busting tactic. It turns a state issue into a national political chessboard. Governors, donors, and other states are now part of the game, trying to influence outcomes that could literally change control of the U.S. House.
Then there was the White House seeking a massive settlement, $1 billion from UCLA over anti-Semitism claims.
Yes, another major clash involving universities.
On August 8th, officials confirmed the administration was demanding $1 billion from UCLA. In return, they'd unfreeze over $500 million in research funding, and UCLA would have to enact sweeping policy changes.
Wow, that's huge leverage.
California Governor Gavin Newsom immediately called it extortion, vowed to sue. University of California leaders said a payout that size would be devastating for students and research.
You can see why.
This whole thing stemmed from campus unrest during the Gaza war, right?
Exactly. And what's fascinating here is how it directly ties civil rights enforcement Title VI likely to federal funding. Big federal funding. It sets this potentially huge precedent for federal leverage over public universities across the country. Other schools facing similar situations, they're watching this incredibly closely. It's a major test. Where's the line between protecting student civil rights and potentially chilling speech or political interference in academia?
And still on the theme of politics meeting industry, the Intel CEO hitting back after President Trump called for his resignation.
A very public spat.
Right. Reuters reported on August 8th that CEO Pat Gelsinger responded after Trump publicly said he should step down. Apparently, the White House was linking his leadership, or lack thereof, to the pace of building new U.S. chip factories, the fabs, and overall chip supply security.
Tied directly to the GPS Act goals.
Intel's response was basically, look, construction is ongoing, here's our product roadmap. Meanwhile, markets are trying to figure out the political risks surrounding all that TGPS funding.
This spat really just highlights how fused industrial policy and politics have become, especially in critical tech sectors like semiconductors. When Washington exerts this kind of public pressure on a company's CEO over factory timelines, well, it injects a lot of uncertainty, doesn't it, into what's already a super complex, very expensive effort to build up chip manufacturing here. Does this pressure actually speed things up? Or does it risk slowing them down by creating leadership chaos and making investors nervous? It's a real question.
Right, let's broaden out to the economy again. Major economic news on August 8th, too, related to that global uncertainty. Investors, consumers, everyone was bracing for President Trump's new tariffs to kick in. Some set to exceed 100% on certain imports, especially hitting trade with China.
Over 100%, that's massive.
And at the same time, the U.S. Consumer Price Index, the CPI, was forecast to jump to 2.8%. That would be the highest in 5 months.
Oof, inflation creeping back up.
Which intensified scrutiny on the Federal Reserve, naturally, and apparently prompted a temporary freeze on construction projects in sectors affected by the tariffs.
Right, this combination, rising inflation and new, very high protectionist measures, creates a really difficult knot for global markets. That 2.8% CPI forecast alongside those tariffs, it rings alarm bells about potential stagflation. High inflation plus stagnant growth. That's a tough spot for households, for businesses, and it just fuels that ongoing debate. Protectionist trade policy versus overall economic growth.
And yet, on a somewhat related note, there was news about U.S. Q2 GDP recovering, sparking more economic debate.
Yes, the GDP numbers.
This data actually came out July 30th, but the discussion was definitely still live on August 8th. The Bureau of Economic Analysis estimated real GDP grew 3.0% in the second quarter, which reversed the decline from the previous quarter.
A bounce back.
Yeah, driven mostly by rebounding consumer demand and fewer imports, though investment and exports were less strong.
So, a mixed picture.
Exactly. Commentators were split. Some hailed it as a strong recovery. Others warned about underlying weaknesses still lurking. Stock markets liked it, but uncertainty remained: inflation, trade wars, the job market.
Well, that 3.0% GDP figure, it looks good on the surface, right?
Mhm.
But when you put it next to those rising inflation numbers and the looming tariff impact we just talked about, it begs the question, is this robust, sustainable growth? Or is it more of a temporary bounce? The fact that investment and exports weren't as strong suggests maybe there are still some structural issues under the hood. It absolutely feeds into that ongoing partisan back and forth about whether current policies are actually working long term.
Okay, let's shift away from the purely political and economic headlines. August 8th also saw significant developments in health, the environment, tech, starting with public health. The FDA flagged safety issues with some Boston Scientific heart
Right,
devices.
important patient safety news.
By August 8th, the FDA had put out early alerts covering their Watchman access systems and also certain endotac reliance defibrillation leads.
Life-saving devices, potentially with issues.
The alerts mentioned serious injuries and sadly, at least 17 deaths linked to one set of devices, plus additional deaths linked to the other.
That's serious.
The company sent out letters updating instructions for use, advising doctors on how to reduce risks. Hospitals started checking inventories, reviewing procedures. Cardiologists were emphasizing, shared decision-making for new implants, vigilant follow-up for existing patients. No outright recalls yet, but insurers were getting ready for potential disruptions.
What's quite striking here, I think, is the speed, the regulatory speed in identifying and flagging these potential problems with devices that are meant to save lives. It really underscores that constant vigilance needed in medical tech, that critical balance between innovation and patient safety. And the fact that hospitals immediately started auditing protocols shows just how vital that rapid response is.
Next, also on the health front, concerning news about China's chikungunya outbreak crossing borders.
The mosquito-borne illness.
By August 8th, Chinese authorities were reporting over 7,000 cases, mostly in Guangdong province, and they were apparently using COVID-style tactics, mass spraying, monitoring pharmacy sales.
Heavy-handed measures.
Taiwan reported its first imported case linked to that outbreak on the same day, and there were criticisms from rights advocates about intrusive home visits, nighttime blood draws, things that went viral on Chinese social media.
Yeah, this is such a clear example happening in real time of how climate change is expanding mosquito habitats, bringing new or previously uncommon disease threats to different regions. The fact that it crossed borders so quickly highlights the need for, well, global coordination, but also nuanced public health responses, focusing on targeted mosquito control, clear communication, avoiding panic, avoiding stigma, and importantly, respecting civil liberties. That's a tough balance.
Okay, shifting to the environment now. Wildfires were a major issue. California battled the canyon fire, and Canada was dealing with devastating fires too.
A recurring theme, unfortunately.
In California, on August 8th, the canyon fire north of LA grew past 5,000 acres. Evacuation orders, warnings for thousands. By evening, they had about 28% containment, some orders lifted. But at least 2 structures destroyed, several firefighters injured, straining crews already spread thin.
It's relentless.
And up in Canada, particularly northern Manitoba, First Nations chiefs were making urgent calls in August for investment in preventative measures. This was after thousands had been evacuated during what was already a record-setting fire season. Huge areas burned.
These events, taken together, just hammer home the escalating reality of climate-driven wildfires. It's undeniable. But beyond the immediate firefighting, it forces us to ask these critical long-term questions, right? How do we harden homes, make power lines safer? How do we fund forest treatments adequately? And maybe most importantly, how do we ensure there's enough funding and support for preventative action, especially for communities hit hardest, like First Nations in Canada, who face this year after year?
Speaking of atmospheric events, NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, alerted Americans to widespread aurora chances because of elevated geomagnetic activity.
The northern lights potentially visible further south.
Exactly. On August 8th, NOAA's Space Weather Prediction Center issued alerts. Auroras might be visible unusually far south if skies were clear and dark, all due to the sun's 11-year cycle ramping up. Solar cycle 25 approaching its peak, meaning more solar storms.
Beautiful, but potentially disruptive.
Right. Beyond the spectacle, utilities and satellite operators were heightening their monitoring.
Because strong solar storms can induce currents that stress power grids, mess with radio communications.
Experts said the risk on August 8th was probably manageable, but it served as a reminder to, harden our infrastructure against this kind of space weather.
Yeah, it's a fascinating contrast, isn't it? Enjoying this amazing celestial show while also recognizing it raises this really practical question.
Yeah.
How prepared is our infrastructure? How do we protect our power grids, our communication networks, from these natural but potentially damaging events originating from the sun? It's a vulnerability we don't always think about.
Okay, turning to technology now. Huge news from OpenAI. They launched GPT-5,
Yes, the next generation AI model.
rolled out August 7th and 8th. For ChatGPT and the API, OpenAI described major improvements: coding, math, understanding images and sound, multimodal, better long-form reasoning.
Covering a lot of ground.
They detailed different API sizes, including this new thinking variant designed for complex tasks, basically positioning GPT-5 as the new default. Tech media coverage framed it as a significant leap forward, maybe not true AGI yet, but a big step, and a clear move to regain momentum in what's becoming a very crowded AI field.
Absolutely.
This release could really shape up pricing, competition for AI assistants, co-pilots, all those integrated tools. Supporters were hailing the improved reliability. Skeptics, though, warned that just winning benchmarks doesn't solve the core issues: safety, bias, potential misuse.
And what's really fascinating here is just the sheer speed of generative AI evolution. It's breathtaking. OpenAI is clearly pushing hard. That thinking variant you mentioned, that's particularly interesting. It hints at the model being able to internally work through steps of a problem before giving an answer, which could mean more reliable, less made up results. It's a big move. But it absolutely highlights that ongoing tension, incredible capabilities versus the critical need for robust safety ethical guidelines.
Right.
Especially as businesses adopt these tools faster and faster. Investors are watching that adoption curve very closely.
And still on the science front, a potential breakthrough in memory research: discovery of a master key protein.
Oh, this sounded promising.
On August 8th, researchers led by Rutgers University announced they'd found this protein that seems to enable stronger memory formation and learning. The findings were published in top scientific journals, hailed for potential implications in fighting Alzheimer's, maybe improving cognitive therapies.
If we connect this to the bigger picture in neuroscience, this kind of discovery, finding a specific molecular mechanism like a master key protein for memory, is potentially a profound step. It could genuinely open doors for new drug targets for neurodegenerative diseases or even new ways to think about educational strategies. But as always with early-stage science, medical experts are rightly urging cautious optimism. It needs rigorous follow-up clinical trials to see if the promise holds true in humans.
We also saw news on August 8th reflecting some of the immediate challenges societies face: severe weather in the central U.S., and sadly, a deadly shooting in the Atlanta area.
Right, reminders of immediate dangers.
Meteorologists reported this powerful, high-pressure ridge over the desert southwest, fueling a historic heat wave there.
Yeah.
But that also set the stage for severe thunderstorms, even tornadoes, across the central U.S.
Clash of weather systems.
Authorities were also monitoring potential tropical systems forming in the Atlantic, so communities facing damage, displacement, health hazards. And then in Atlanta, that shooting near Emory University and the CDC, it triggered lockdowns, a big police response. Police later confirmed at least one person was killed. Investigations ongoing.
Tragic.
And incidents like that, they immediately reignite debates about campus security, emergency communication, local gun policies.
These events, the weather, the shooting, and you can even loop in the ongoing scrutiny of FEMA's role after recent disasters, wildfires, hurricanes. It all emphasizes this urgent, constant need for robust emergency preparedness, for resilient infrastructure, for public services that can actually respond effectively. What connects these seemingly disparate things is that fundamental challenge. How do we ensure equitable, effective disaster recovery and public safety for everyone, everywhere in the country, whether it's a tornado or an act of violence?
Okay, one more significant legal development with major human rights implications: a class action lawsuit targeting Georgia's ban on transgender healthcare in prisons.
Yes, a critical case.
On August 8th, this class action suit, challenging Georgia's policy of denying inmates access to gender-affirming care, reached a key point in the legal process. Advocates argued the ban violates constitutional rights, cruel and unusual punishment, equal protection, and also international norms. The plaintiffs included inmates, civil liberties groups, health professionals.
A broad coalition.
The case drew national attention: protests, media coverage. Opinions were split. Supporters of the ban cited costs, security concerns. Opponents warned about health crises, discrimination, increased suicide risk for a vulnerable population.
This lawsuit really goes to the heart of the ongoing battle over LGBTQ+ rights, specifically within the correctional system. It forces a direct confrontation between state policy concerns like budgets and security and what advocates argue are fundamental human and medical rights guaranteed by the Constitution. The outcome here could absolutely set precedents, shaping future court cases and influencing policies in other states regarding transgender healthcare access in prisons. It's definitely a bellwether.
And finally, a moment of reflection. August 8th also marked the passing of a true icon, Apollo 13 commander Jim Lovell.
Ah, yes. A legend.
News organizations reported his death at age 97. His incredibly calm radio call, "Houston, we've had a problem," became instant shorthand for professionalism under unimaginable pressure.
Absolutely iconic.
He was a veteran astronaut, flew Gemini missions, Apollo missions, commanded the crippled Apollo 13 mission in 1970, helped guide that crew safely back to Earth against all odds. One of NASA's absolute finest hours.
Truly remarkable.
He also co-authored Lost Moon, which became the basis for the movie Apollo 13.
Right.
Tributes just poured in from NASA, former colleagues, leaders,
No.
all framing his life as this lesson in teamwork, engineering skill, humility. For the space community, his passing really marks the dwindling of that generation of astronauts who bridged the old test pilot era with the moonshot era.
If we connect his life to the bigger picture, Lovell's legacy is just this incredibly powerful reminder of human ingenuity, of resilience, of what teamwork can achieve when faced with seemingly impossible odds. His story, especially Apollo 13, continues to inspire. It teaches us that even from near catastrophe, incredible dedication and brilliant problem solving can lead to extraordinary triumphs, a real testament to the human spirit.
So when you step back and look at it all, what does August 8th, 2025 really tell us? It wasn't just another Tuesday or Wednesday, was it? It really felt like a microcosm of almost everything pressing in our world. That delicate dance of global diplomacy, the relentless pace of tech innovation, the ongoing fights for rights and resources, the stark realities of climate change, public safety. It was all happening.
Absolutely. Every single one of these stories we've touched on, whether it's a global summit or a local wildfire or a court case, it's a thread in this incredibly complex tapestry of our present and certainly our future. Understanding how they connect, seeing those patterns beneath the surface. That's really the key, I think, to being truly well-informed to navigating the world we're in.
Well, we hope this deep dive into just one single day has given you not just a collection of facts, but maybe a richer sense of the forces shaping our world, maybe sparked some new connections for you as well. Thank you for sharing your sources with us and for joining us on this deep dive. So here's something to think about. Given everything we saw crammed into that one day, August 8th, 2025, what single story from that day do you think will have the longest lasting impact, say, 5 years from now, and why?